Hello everyone, this is Lala and today I'm going to be reviewing and recapping the challenge Ride or Dies. And first I will say that I did like the theme of the season, and it's an ode to Era 3 where they went with the personal themed casting of the season and personally themed casting twist, where obviously in that time period it was mainly rivals and exes and probably something else that I'm missing. But with this season, it was ride or dies, which is actually a very good twist. Instead of focusing on negative interactions with those themes that I've discussed in Era 3, they decided to focus on positive casting twists and pairs with Ride or Dies. And I felt like this was a theme that should have happened a lot sooner than it did, but at least we finally got it. But the issue is obviously there are a lot of questionable pairs that weren't actual Ride or Dies. Some of them didn't know one another whatsoever in the season, so that obviously kind of just weakened the season a lot, in my opinion. And some of the other pairs were literally forced together because the real Ride or Dies couldn't be on the season, so that kind of weakened things overall. And I also think that with this taking place while COVID was still very rampant, caused a lot of the COVID, not backlash, but the lingers of COVID to remain throughout this season. And honestly, this was clearly another vacation align season with everyone who was in that alliance or was an affiliate of the alliance all gathered together to align this season, and they pretty much steamrolled. I did like the machinations of the season when it comes to the winning pair nominating for people, one going into the elimination outright. And then I did like the draw since it was kind of an ode to the free agents cards and what was it called? And the X thing with not double agents, Dirty 30 and Final Reckoning, where you had to choose people to save and choose to put people in danger in the eliminations or the redemption. So I really like that. At the same time, while the season doesn't have the lows of Spice, Lights, and Eyes, or even some of the last few seasons, it really doesn't have many, if any, highs either. And while there were some dramatic moments or whatever, it really doesn't stand out, even against some of the more recent seasons. So that was kind of disappointed. I don't think. Actually, no. When I watched it for the first time, I thought it was decent enough. Then, when I rewatched it last season, I dropped on it significantly more. And now I might have risen my opinion on it a bit, but not by much. I'm not even sure about that. So I just don't feel a whole lot for the season overall. And it also doesn't help that the format changed midway through the season. Really, really, really effed things over and made it a lot worse. Everyone is paired up with their loved ones, where some of them are friends, i.e., Laurel and Jack, Norris and Nelson, Thomas and Annalise, and Jay and Michelle. Some of them are lovers, the recently married Kayla and Sam, and Amber and Chauncey, and etc. when it comes to the type of writers they are. While they are on the boat, they are doing cheers, and Turbo picks a fight with Laurel for not giving him a drink, and she said that she didn't see him as he was away from the others, and he called her out since he asked 3 times, and she does offer him a drink here, but he says that it's too late. Laurel actually handles this very calmly and maturely here, which is odd. Tara is talking about seeing everyone in an elimination, and he's ruining the vibe, where many people are talking about it. They all arrive to their house, and apparently Johnny and Jay know one another, where Jay and Michelle also have a lot of alliances, and this is a common thing with the two of them, and it won't be the last this season. Raven feels away since Johnny kind of ghosted her, and he starts making out with Norris immediately. Sam is nervous about being on the show and letting her take the reins, which apparently isn't his thing, and he generally takes the reins in the relationship. And they got married 3 months ago. Casey is in the house with her brother, and she's doing well without Nanny. And I'm sorry. She's talking about doing the season without Nanny, though I'm sure that they talked beforehand, so she probably knew that Nanny was coming into the season, but just a bit late. Kayla wants her husband to be quiet for 2 weeks so they could lay under the radar, and Nelson spills the tea about how Johnny and Reese were feeling one another from the airport and the hotel, and they were making out on the plane ride, and Raven talks to Nelson about how he shut her down on the plane, i.e., Johnny shut her down. Colleen is lying about her original show since she came from the Mall Germany, and that makes her look shady, and Faisal is trying to flirt with her. Of course he is, that's generally his type. Jack knows that Colleen is lying about the show where she didn't come from Love Island, but she won them all. TJ announces that Kenny and Casey had to leave the game. One of them got COVID, I believe, and I don't remember who, but they were sequestered after this. They also didn't mention that Anissa was at the house with her real life friend named James, if I'm remembering correctly, but he was also pulled from the game completely. Anissa was sequestered just like Casey and Kenny were, where we obviously see the three of them back. Due to this, alternate Horacio and Olivia and Nam and Emmy are added onto the cast. The first daily is Balls for Blood, hopefully I'm saying that correctly, where they have to answer questions and get their balls to get the proper answers, as the balls are numbered, and the first person to get their answers will win. There is consistent talk about Nelson not winning a daily in many seasons, and I'm sure they asked him about this in prior seasons, but it never mattered to them, hence it never making it to the air episodes on those seasons. And we have Johnny and Raven winning the first daily. I think it's a fine enough daily, and I wish that it was a mad wrestling daily, like have they done it for all the other iterations of the challenge throughout this specific era. People are annoyed that Johnny and Raven won the daily, though I don't see the issue with the Ricky pair celebrating their first win on their first challenge. Nelson somehow forgot his age, which, wow. They have to nominate 4 pairs, and then choose one of them to officially go into the elimination, and Jay and Michelle are glad to be aligned to them. And the rookie pair go into the deliberation, where they nominate Laura and Jack, Tori and Devin, and Kim and Colleen as a smokescreen, and Kayla and Sam, where they really want to get the vets out so they can make a mark for themselves, essentially. And they know that the rookies are always targeted. Laurel thinks that it's the dumbest move that they could have made, and the vets are clamoring about how it isn't smart. Of course they are, though he really had not much else to do. Johnny tells Sam and Kayla that they aren't going to make outright deals where these deliberations don't go very well for them. Laura and Jack throw Colleen and Kim under the bus, but it really goes nowhere. Nelson and Olivia are feeling one another, and we learn about how close Jack and Laura got after being on X on the Peak together, I believe 3 years ago at this point, and they're speaking to Raven, who I think is also close to Laurel as I'm recording this. Johnny and Raven asks Jay and Michelle and Amber and Chauncey, as well as Norris, who's also in the room, to have their back when they make this move. So it's clear that they are kind of in alliance. Johnny and Raven nominates Kayla and Sam, where the others have to play in the draw. Devin makes a joke about Turbo picking the draw since he's good at martial arts, so the two of them are having some sort of back and forth. Kim and Colleen pick the safe draw where they choose Laura and Jack to save, meaning Tori and Devin are going into elimination. You move, I move is the elimination, where each person in the pair has to stand on a platform of each maze and to get to their 5 balls in the middle of the hole. It's a fine enough elimination, but we have Devin and Tori beating Kayla and Sam. They can enjoy their honeymoon now, but with them gone, another pair enters the house, where Johnny and Nanny appear. It is honestly a shame that Kayla and Sam went home first. I wanted him to be on the challenge since his ex on the beach, or ex on the peak, really. He has a big personality, and Kayla always causes some sort of mess whenever she's on the show. Apparently, she stopped doing the show because she was tired of MTV's pay disparities ripping her off, and she apparently got paid the same amount as her husband did to do the season, where this was his second MTV reality TV season, and she's done like 10 of them, so I do think this is the last that we will see of Kayla, unless things significantly change. And it's clear that they don't see her as a high priority, hence her not getting paid the amount that she feels that she should be paid. Honestly, I wish we had different partners since, like I mentioned before, I really don't like repeat partners. Like, Nanny could have easily came in with Dustin, since I know Leroy was still retired at this point, at least for another few months, regarding the filming time. And I know Johnny pitched for Janelle and Emily to be on, and I would have preferred either of them. Michelle expects Nanny to have her back since they are friends in real life. So, with this being on the episode, of course that won't happen. Nanny is shocked that Casey is gone and Tori and Devin eliminated Kayla and Sam. Devin and Bananas are close now, despite their issues, which we all know won't last, and they're told that Johnny and Raven are going after the vets. Nanny's mother just recently passed away, so she's dealing with the baggage that comes with it, and of course, the grief and pain. Turbo and Bananas have some issues still, though I never realized that they had issues, but I guess they never focused on it on either season. And Bananas didn't last long on either season for them to really show it. And Nora tells Bananas about her fight with Turbo on the boat. Tori talks about spiraling a year and a half ago with her breakup with Jordan and how she is currently on medication. And we learn that Jay is tight with Olivia and Horacio and Johnny and Raven. And Michelle is closer to the veteran, so there might be a playing both sides thing. We get to the challenge and we're told that Emmy quit, so Nam had to leave with her. So another reason why you shouldn't bring international people who bring or who know nothing about this show is Emmy, where she didn't think the show would be what it was. And another issue is that she and Nam didn't even know one another before the season. They were paired together because Nam refused to pick a partner, so they picked one for him, and it might have had to do with someone who was just on his agency, and I was just lazy, and I do blame him more for it this time than what happened to him on Spice Lights and Eyes. I am fine with him not coming back at this point, and Emmy was just a complete waste of time. Balancing act is the daily where they have to jump and then climb on a platform to balance it. It's a decent enough daily, and we have Bananas and Nanny winning the daily, and Kenny and Casey come back here to replace the people who were DQ'd or who quit, which of course Nanny and the Vacation Alliance is thrilled about. Nanny speaks to Turbo that she was told that he wanted to go into the elimination, and she asks if he wants to go in, and he doesn't like her asking him this, as he feels like she's gaslighting him. They're clearly not getting along, and he tells her to not talk to him like this, as he doesn't want to go in, and she mentions that she is in power, and he's going to let her finish talking if she cherishes any sort of friendship that they had. She's literally grabbing him several times so he won't walk away, which definitely isn't the best thing. And she thinks that he won't just say no, since he doesn't want to look weak. He feels like she shouldn't have to go ask him if he needs help, and he should feel like he should ask her to help him, but she should just do it. And she sees him as the worst communicator ever, and I agree with her on this. Johnny and Nanny nominates Turbo and Tamara, Johnny and Raven, Jay and Michelle, and Olivia and Horacio, where three groups of friends can take out Turbo and Tamara, who no one wants in the house anymore. Horacio is shocked because he thought that the performance in the challenge would have made him safe, and it clearly shows that he just doesn't understand the game. Johnny and Nanny know that Jay and Michelle were behind Johnny and Raven's move, and Michelle is crying to Nanny, and it's just ridiculous. I don't know why Michelle thinks that she would be a bigger priority in Nanny's eyes. She only just did one season with Nanny, where she was an early boot on that season. Turbo and Nanny argue once again in the deliberation as he walks off. Raven is annoyed with Johnny not giving her much assurance and spending more time with Nerys, and we see Horacio and Laura hanging out, where she's gaining a crush on him. Michelle and Nanny have to talk, and Nanny mentions that she didn't want to do the season, but she knows that her mom would want her to do it, since people are questioning why she would even do the season with what just happened in her family. Michelle and Jay are getting slight mistrust with Johnny as they're watching him and Olivia speaking to one another outside, so they're assuming that a deal is being made with the other two pairs. Turbo and Tamara are nominated right into elimination, and Jay and Michelle have to draw, where they do choose to save Johnny and Raven, which Michelle doesn't want since she's a bootlicker, but Jay is closer friends with Johnny and Raven, mainly Johnny, than Olivia and Horacio, so it just makes sense. The two pairs play in memory lane, where they have to run to each box and flip the two boxes on the floor to see what matches, and then tag to switch with the partner. I think this elimination would have been fun if the entire crowd didn't yell and give the answers to Olivia and Horacio. The audience interference really got ridiculous at this point, and of course Tupper and Tamara loses. Jordan and Anissa arrive as a player, despite us never really seeing him interact on a friendship level on the show. The real reason for this is that Nia got a vaping health issue last minute, and she was partnered with Jordan, so she had to drop out. And Anissa's partner, or with Anissa's partner already being out, they didn't want to lose Jordan and Anissa, so they just paired them up. Anyways, Turbo was very unlikable on the season, and apparently he made production and the cast extremely uncomfortable with his actions. But he caused a lot of drama, and that intensity was something that was missing on the last few seasons. And even compared to the episodes post Turbo, it was missing throughout a lot of the season here. His social game was beyond horrendous, and him not having any sort of humor was ridiculous. I am looking forward to seeing him and Nani together again as a pair on All Stars 5. I have nothing to say about Tamara, where she apparently faked a relationship with him to be on the show, and she broke up with her boyfriend just so she could do it. Honestly, Turbo and Berna should have been Ride or Dice instead, since they apparently debuted on the same Survivor season, and they're both such intense, drama-filled personalities. I don't know why they couldn't have just added all the couples in the beginning instead of adding them in the first 3 episodes, where literally no numbers change within the first 4 episodes, if my math is correct. They're really trying to build this huge friendship with Jordan and Anissa, though they narrate as mainly her best friend's ex-fiance, which is accurate, and Jordan and Tori have not seen one another in the last year and a half, since they didn't end on the best terms. I also feel like this was a dumb setup because Turbo and Jordan technically were on a season together, but they never played together since Jordan arrived right after Turbo left, which is such a missed opportunity for drama, and that's why they should just put them all in at once. Anyways, Tommy and Annalise talk about how Big Brother has a bad stigma amongst the show, which is true, and Johnny catches up on Jordan and Anissa, or Johnny Bananas catches up those two about the 3 teams at the bottom, which is Jay and Michelle, Johnny and Raven, and Horacio and Olivia, with Nelson and Fessa playing in the middle, which Fessa confirms, since he's aligned with Nelson and Nerys and Casey and Kenny primarily. Raven, Johnny, and Norris are talking about why the partnership is weak, and Johnny doesn't see it like that, and Raven is annoyed about how Johnny has to put in any effort into their partnership outside of the challenge, and Norris is claiming to want to be Raven's friend. Anissa asks Tori if she was okay, and we learn that Jordan broke up with Tori, and she hooked up with Fessel 2 months afterwards, which hurt Jordan, though she was in her right to do so since they were single. Because of him. And Tori regrets hooking up with Fessel, who is a walking mistake in the Ride or Die's house. Tori talks about her depression, seeing a therapist, and taking meds now. Fessel talks about. Oh, sorry. Yeah, he talks about his actual ethnic name and wanting it on his jersey to Casey. I've been calling him Fessel throughout these reviews, and I generally like calling people their real names in real life instead of their nicknames, so it's just a habit for me. And how he talked about people in his life called him Fess at first, then Fessy when he was growing up, and he wants to embrace his ethnic name, which means decision maker in Arabic. But people don't really believe it, as Benaz mentions that Messi Fessy is still him, as Messi Fessy has had Michelle and Laura in his bed while flirting with Annalise and Colleen. I actually really do like this message that Faisal is exhibiting when it comes to showing and embracing his name. And I feel like a lot of people with quote unquote ethnic names should do so instead of blending in and getting rid of their heritage and their language by adopting Anglo or names in the languages that is predominant in their area of residence that isn't their ethnic name or language. The daily is building up where they have to bring giant barrels to a station, stack them, climb it to a ring bell, or sorry, climb it to ring a bell, and then to make it to the finish line. I really do like this daily, as it's a simple but challenging one at the same time without it being ridiculous. Faisal and Mariah are able to beat Johnny and Raven and Horacio and Olivia, to the happiness of the veterans. Tommy and Annalise are talking about their poor performance in the daily, and Mariah and Faisal nominate Raven and Johnny, Tommy and Annalise, despite being in some sort of Big Brother alliance with them, since they suck. Olivia and Horacio, and Colleen and Kim. Faisal is working with the vet and wants one of the rookie players out, which is very clear here. Tommy and Annalise make deals with both Colleen and Kim and Olivia and Horacio to make sure that they are safe no matter what. Johnny and Raven are not getting along, and they're chipping at one another, which is not a good space to be in before a potential elimination. She mentions that he made her look like a clown, and he has embarrassed her in front of everyone, and he thinks that she is doing the most. Apparently, Nerys and Raven got into a fight here that they didn't show, which is just dumb as hell. Tori confronts Jordan about not telling her that he was doing the season and feels some type of way about him cutting her off, but it ends up with her apologizing to him. Jordan is trying not to cry, and Tori is a crying mess at this point. So they end up hugging one another after this. Fessa speaks to Colleen and Kim about how he isn't nominating them and he wants them to be safe. Fessel is throwing shade at Horacio for being boyfriend number two, where whomever Fessel doesn't want goes to him, and it's just very petty as he's watching Laurel speak to Horacio. Fessel and Mariah nominate Johnny and Raven directly, and Tommy and Annalise choose to draw to save Kim and Colleen. This is a big deal, it's made into a big deal about them backstabbing Olivia and Horacio, but I don't care, though the alumni mention that it's a typical Big Brother move, continuing the stigma that Big Brother players have. The elimination is double decker, which is a newer version of Hell Brawl, as there's one Holly at the top and one at the bottom, where the people at the bottom have to push the bar, which unlocks the ones at the top. Where the people at the bottom complete it, then the people at the top have to go on. And they have to do this 3 times, or best out of 3 if I'm remembering this correctly. I actually do really like this elimination. I wish that this was the modern version of the Hall Brawl, as it's a lot safer. Raven's shoes keeps on getting knocked over, or her shoe, actually not shoes, though it was more competitive between the guys, but Olivia and Horacio do end up winning. The final pair in Daryl and Veronica enter the season as a pair, and it is a nice OG pair. I still can't believe that Johnny was taken off Battle for a New Champion, or the cast, last minute over literally all of the men on the cast. He gave a young buck vibe, he was very young, and he's a fuck boy who's very charismatic, and can also compete very well. Raven was a lot more emotional and a mess on the season, as she had feelings for Johnny that was unrequited, but she did compete well, and I'm glad that she did get another chance after this at least. And they're probably some of the best rookies on the season, which says a lot, despite them being booted episode 3. Of course, Amber is happy that Darrell is in the house, and a lot of people are talking about them arriving late, making them a target, though Nani, who's also speaking, also arrived late. And no one's saying that about Jordan and Anissa as well. But it was a dumb idea to not put all of them in the house at once, like I already stated. Tommy and Annalise talk to Olivia about how they're sorry about their choice, and she calls them out for looking untrustworthy, and they'll probably continue to get thrown in. Now, Horacio talks to Laurel about it, and Laurel is crushing really hard on him as she continues to hug him. Even her interactions with Norris, as recently as a few months ago online, is ridiculous, and it's all about Horacio. A lot of the rookies and Amber and Michelle are not thrilled with the increasing amount of veterans, and Norris also knows that she and Nelson are in the middle of the house. They're trying to push their special Fessel and Colleen situation, and I don't care about them hooking up. Jordan decides to share a bed with Tori, despite there being other beds in the house, and I don't know if they were actually hooking up here or not. And Olivia and Nelson also they make it very clear that they're fucking too. Nelson is speaking to Jay about how he doesn't win dailies because what happened to Fessel will end up happening to him, as he is now a bigger target, and nominating for people isn't good. I remember a lot of veterans stating while the season was airing that they intentionally threw the dailies for this reason. Hold On For Me is the daily where one person is holding the bar over the edge of a building and their partner has to jump into their arms while they swing to grab the flag behind them as well. Of course, Darrell isn't thrilled with the height challenge, and it's decent enough, though I don't like high stuff like this, just in general. Maurice and Nelson win the daily over Anissa and Jordan, and Tommy screws it up for himself and Annalise, where they could have won, but he didn't turn it around to get the flag as he was doing some like Broadway move. Maurice wants to nominate 2 vets, and Nelson tells her that it isn't a good thing to do, where she knows that the vet women do not like her, and she knows that she'll be targeted when the format changes, which does happen. Nelson is telling. Sorry. Nelson is telling Maurice that you have to play for future seasons, and these vets know one another and will know one another. And this to me, the way he was stating this is essentially stating that you need to play to make it far so you can get a bigger appearance check and so you can come back. And this mentality that has taken over, especially with the last few seasons, is the reason why these seasons are so effing boring. And it's the reason why Nelson just got cornier and cornier and lamer and lamer. Anyways, Nelson is telling Olivia that he has to pick them, so fucking really gets you nowhere, but she's being very understanding of it. They nominate Kim and Colleen, Horacio and Olivia, Tommy and Annalise, and Darrell and Veronica, and their plan is to make sure that Darrell and Veronica and Kim and Colleen save Horacio and Olivia, so they won't go into elimination. Jay thinks that Nelson made a weak-ass move, which he did, and Olivia is fine with the plan. We get some somber Annalise and Tommy content before the elimination takes place, and they of course sent right into elimination, where Horacio and Olivia choose to save Dagger and save Darrell and Veronica. Kim and Colleen are playing against Annalise and Tommy in Flipping Wasted, where one of them are laying above a mud pit where their other partner has to hold them so they can see and assemble the puzzle. Tommy can't even lift Annalise up the platform to even do the elimination, and it's just a really bad and a really pathetic showing. Kim is literally giving Tommy advice on what to do in the elimination, and it's really a wash with Kim and Colleen easily winning, and Annalise didn't even get a chance to do anything. They do cheer Tommy up after his poor performance, so they didn't shit on him on his way out. If anyone watched my video on Big Brother 21, I do not like Annalise, but I do think that she had potential to do well on the show, but Tommy just wasn't a good partner. He's clearly fit, but not the right type of athletic for this show. It's a bit too campy, and he's also very short. They got the typical flat that the new Big Brother people get, and I can't say that they offered anything to the show, but I do think that they were struggling to pick rich people from Big Brother to cast at this point in the show's history, and even in Big Brother history as well, since I believe the All Star season happened 2 years beforehand, and they just put a bunch of the BB23 people on USA 1, which formed right before this. Pauline and Kim are thrilled with their elimination win, but they know that they're going into elimination again since they are still target, and Michelle knows that she and Jay are next after the rookies are gone, so they won't go in after that. Mariah is getting with Bananas, though he is not her usual type. So Devin was right about this, and yes, I am basing it on what he said on the 4-day reunion, which did kind of leak. And Laurel is thrilled to be here after doing 4 years of veterinary school. Doral and Veronica know that they lack connections, coming in late, and are just very expendable. There's a lot of focus on Jack and Jay's friendship, but it apparently was over exaggerated as they are singing some sort of rap, which is a setup for later. And apparently, Jay does this with Aesop in real life. Anissa and Veronica are talking about how they have a connection with one another, so it seems like they're over the mess from Dirty 30 with the whole alleged outing thing and the supposed relationship. Michelle speaks to Amber about how something is off with Laura and she senses some friction there. And she knows that if Laura wins, she's going in. Amber is talking about how Michelle is paranoid in the confessional, so things aren't really good at all. The daily is well relay where they have to go on a boat and swim to grab crown points to create them. The daily is really nothing special, and we have Michelle and Jay winning the daily over Tori and Devin, and Jack is expecting to be safe here. Michelle is still wanting Laurel and Jack to be nominated, and Lisa and Jordan, Kim and Colleen, and Veronica and Daryl are nominated, where Michelle thinks that Nanny and Bananas will do them a favor if they don't nominate them. Michelle is always wanting people's approval, which is my biggest annoyance with her overall. Their allies think that they made a weak ass move since Bananas and Nanny nominated them, where Anissa, Jordan, Laurel, and Jack are pissed off about being nominated, and the deliberation with both of the couples just make things worse. Michelle releases that she woke up the giant, and she tells Bananas that their gut was to not nominate them, and he was shocked that they weren't nominated, but Bananas is saying whatever he needs to say to make them feel comfortable. Jay speaks to Jack about if Laura is going to get over this to make amends, and he says that she needs time, but Jack is holding back his anger. But as long as Jay and Michelle don't nominate them outright to go into elimination, they are fine. Jack complains about this to Laura, and she's confused, since Jack holds a grudge as well, especially since he doesn't make much friends. Michelle speaks to Anissa about how they are not going to be the main vote, and they are fine, which won't last. And Veronica overhears them speaking, so she knows Anissa will throw her under the bus. Veronica and Darrell speak about how she would want to save Anissa and Jordan, but the smart gameplay would be to not do that, since Anissa is part of the Vacation Alliance, Vet Alliance, who's played in recent seasons. Essentially, though Veronica doesn't state those exact words. Laurel speaks to Michelle, and it's actually the other way around, with Michelle approaching Laurel, since Laurel is confused about where Michelle's head's at, and she's confused about what Michelle is saying, since Laura is the one in elimination or in potential elimination, and Michelle wants to clear the air to see where they can go from it. The conversation is very awkward as hell, as they just have two different communication styles, and it's just very funny to watch. And Laurel doesn't get why Michelle thinks that she, i.e., Laurel, is after her, i.e., Michelle, since she isn't winning any competitions and she did nothing to her, where it's all in Michelle's head. Jay and Michelle nominate Laurel and Jack directly into elimination, where Darrell and Veronica pull the safe dagger, where they save Anissa and Jordan, sending in Colleen and Jack. The elimination is Give Me Some Slack, where they are strapped to a wall and they have to march the colors and symbols on the other side of the wall, where their partner is on the opposite side of the wall. This seems to be a pretty neat elimination, but Kim and Colleen were not allowed to communicate in their native tongue, i.e., German, to do their elimination. And Laura and Jack win the elimination over Colleen and Jack. I don't have much to say about Colleen and Jack. It seems like people found out she was from the mole from the commentary in the latter episodes, but it didn't really go anywhere after that. Apparently, they didn't know one another before the season, and they're put together due to the agents, which sucks. Kim seems like a chill enough dude, but he didn't really do much else. And I'm honestly glad Colleen and Fessa didn't go anywhere. We will see Colleen again next season. Laurel and Jack are happy due to their elimination win, and Michelle and Jay realize that they fucked up, essentially, where Laurel is not going and Michelle was cheering on Colleen and Jack. They go out to celebrate, and Jordan and Anissa are talking about her struggling in the last challenge, and Jordan is very understanding, where he talks about being born without a hand, which caused him to have to fight harder in everything he does. Johnny and Nanny are talking about how her mother is her motivation, and she is struggling despite all of that. Jay is not over Jack calling him garbage, and he tries to make a joke out of it with him, where Laurel is also talking to Mariah about how Horacio told her last night that he was talking to a girl before this, so she moved out of their shared bedroom. It apparently came out from some of the other challengers on the season that Horacio was lying about this, but he said it because he just didn't want Laurel. Speaking of Laurel, she feels very hurt about this, and you can tell by her confessionals that she was sad about this and the fact that she was out when she was recording that confessional. And Horacio is speaking to Olivia about the misunderstanding. Down the line is the daily where they have to race to their colored zone, take out their bag, go the zip line to ride the platform, where one of them has to go down and make a puzzle. And it's a fine enough daily, I guess. Jay and Michelle win over Horacio and Olivia, and Laura and Jack know that they are getting nominated once again. Michelle and Jay wanted Horacio and Olivia to win, so they are not happy, and Amber thinks that Michelle is making too many deals, as Michelle made a one-day deal with Devin, so he and Tori are untouchable. I noticed throughout a lot of the confessions this season that Amber is kind of throwing a lot of salt on Michelle, so I'm wondering if Michelle knew or felt that vibe at all. Michelle and Jay tell Jordan and Anissa that they are getting nominated so they wouldn't piss people off, and of course Jordan and Anissa are not thrilled with it, to say the very least. Laura and Jack, Jordan and Anissa, Kenny and Casey, and Bananas and Nanny are nominated. Jack gets annoyed because Michelle and Jay apparently told him that he wasn't getting nominated once again, though they didn't show this on the actual episode, and Anissa doesn't appreciate that she's being sent in against girlfriends Nanny and Casey, who are obviously safe one another over her, making herself and Jordan more susceptible to go into elimination. Nanny goes on a rant about how she will go berserk if Casey is in the elimination, and Jordan lets loose in the deliberation, where Jay is also getting very hot-headed, where Jordan calls them out for telling the others that they will help them out while not doing that, and Michelle mentions that they did hear the two of them out. Jay doesn't like Jordan calling him weak, though Jordan still thinks that he is weak. And it's great to see them kind of just go back and forth and rounding each other up, since I do feel like they have similar personalities when it comes to just being naturally hot-headed and stubborn, and not having the best awareness at times. The vacation couples call out Jay and Michelle for trying to build an army that they are not in, and Fessel speaks to Laura about her being all over Horacio, and the two of them end up cuddling with one another, though Horacio is claiming that he's slightly jealous, though, I don't give a fuck. Nanny rants about Jay and Michelle before Michelle walks into the conversation to a steaming Nanny, who isn't pleased that she might lose her girlfriend, where Michelle does apologize, but Nanny wants Michelle to leave her alone. Laurel and Nanny continue to rant, and Jay tells Michelle not to feel bad, since Nanny and Bananas nominated them and she didn't care about Michelle crying. Jay is honestly correct about this, and it's one of the annoying things about Michelle, as she's way too much of a people pleaser, and she's so much of a kiss ass, even when people are treating her poorly, especially during this part in her career. Jay and Michelle send in Jordan and Anissa directly, which fires up Jordan, and of course the couple saves one another. So Laura and Jack are in the elimination, and Laura and Jordan take it really personally that they, as exes and friends, are in against one another, and they kind of lash out at Jay and Michelle over it. Which, yes, I do get their feelings, but what else were Jay and Michelle supposed to do? They compete in Your Face, where they have to carry blocks back to their stack, which unleash the balls, and they have to throw those balls at targets with the faces of the challengers. And one person from one team is offense, and the other person from the other team is defense with the balls. Jordan is literally chanting and yelling at Jay, and of course he and Anissa beat Laura and Jack. It's so weird and somewhat refreshing to see Laurel so emotional, but not an angry sort of emotional. And she doesn't appreciate being sent in against her ex. But you could tell that Laurel flopping on 2 seasons in a row was definitely getting to her. But I did find her refreshing without Cara Maria or Nicole on a season. Jack was cool. He was fine. He was a true ride or die for Laurel, though I don't think he offered much to the show as a personality or a competitor, but he solely clearly did this for Laurel. Jay and Michelle know that the entire Vacation Alliance is coming for them, and Tori and Devin meet up to discuss their deal with Michelle and Jay. And Tori doesn't want to stick with it because they will lose all trust with the people that they are actually with and they actually trust. And Jay and Michelle will throw them in at some point, but Devin is open to renegotiate with them. Amber is watching them and she doesn't trust Devin since he's making a bunch of deals with people in the house as she reports this to Nelson. Amber mentions that Nelson and Darrell are the only vets who have not thrown her in, and they're clearly setting this up for this to not be true in a few moments. And he wants to maneuver quietly because it is working for him in the game well, and I'm oh sorry, this is in reference to Nelson, and he promises to not send her in. Chauncey speaks to Jordan, and the latter is not over Jay targeting him, so Jordan wants to politic with him, with Chauncey and Amber thinking that they're in good spots in the house. And Devin is watching this conversation between Chauncey and Jordan. They go out to some bar, and Banana says to Darrell that Jay and Michelle did not nominate him, so they can recruit him, and Bananas knows that Darrell doesn't speak game ever. Darrell and Veronica do not care about picking a side right now, and Fessel and Casey are talking about how they don't politic, though Casey mentions that she has other reasons for that, which we'll get into in the reunion, and they let their performance speak for themselves. We move on to Anissa arguing with Jay about their choice, and she says that he pissed off a lot of people, with the bridge essentially being completely burnt now. Peking Blinders is the daily where they have to race to an answer key, where they have to stand on a stool on one foot, where the other partner memorizes it, where they have to put together the puzzle. I really do like the daily, and Nerys and Nelson do win it, where Amber is expecting to be safe since they are working together. Jay is hoping for Nelson to make big moves, and Nelson thinks that he's connected to too many people, so why did he win the daily then? And Nelson doesn't give a shit about targeting bananas, especially since Nanny's mother just passed away, and he feels so indebted to not do that to someone whose mother just passed away. Which is also nice, but I don't like how people kind of weaponize stuff like that in the game. And it also just shows how Nelson completely changed from how he was in the earlier seasons. But he's playing to make it far and for the appearance fee, not to actually win. And I feel like everyone wants other people to kind of do their dirty work, and someone in his position should have just continued throwing the dailies like many other vacation members did, so they wouldn't have to nominate and piss off for people. So Nelson and Reese nominates Jordan and Denisa, Amber and Chauncey, Veronica and Darrell, and Nanny and Bananas. With the initial intention for Darrell and Veronica and Amber and Chauncey to save one another. At least this is according to Nelson. Jay wants one of the vacation couples to be chosen as the main vote, and people are wondering why Tori and Devin aren't nominated, so they know that a deal was made, and this will cause a lot of talk. Bananas and Nanny think that it's weird that Nelson never nominated Fessel, but it was because Devin didn't want it to happen, or at least that's how they see it. Amber mentions that she feels hurt and betrayed since she wasn't told about being nominated, and Nelson and Reese were in their top four teams, and Nelson mentions that she isn't in their top four, which shocks and blindsides her, and Nurse doesn't trust Amber for whatever reason, and she never really clarifies why, but things just completely go left here. Bananas and Nanny mention that they never targeted Nelson and Reese, and she won't forgive him for this, as they make it clear that he should have nominated Faisal and Mariah, who actually did him dirty, clearly referring to double agents 2 years and 2 seasons ago. Amber is mocking Devin to her boyfriend, and Nerys is watching them, where Nelson knows that he fucked it up with Amber, and Nerys reports what Amber said about Devin. Nelson reports this to Devin, who thinks it's odd since she sent Chauncey to make a deal with Jordan. We didn't actually see anything about Amber telling Chauncey to make this deal with Jordan. It could have happened, but they just didn't include it in the episode. We also don't know that it didn't happen. It's very odd. And now Nelson thinks that Amber and Chauncey were targeting their alliance, which came out of nowhere. Nelson and Nelson and Nerys confront Chauncey and Amber about what he said, and Chauncey thinks that it is ludicrous, and Amber mentions that none of it makes sense, since why would she target her own allies? Nelson won't tell them who said it, which should have been a sign that it's BS, because if you're honest and upfront about it, you shouldn't be able to hide and withdraw that. And essentially, the couple know that he already made his mind, and it's clearly Devin who got in his ear. Devin speaks to Michelle about things being hidden from him and is questioning what Amber has been saying to her. And Michelle said that Amber questioned her about why she didn't nominate Devin. He gets all angry with Michelle and he demands her to tell him what Amber said. And if she wants to play with him, she will not entertain conversations with Amber about this. The future couple are arguing about this, and the house is observing them arguing, and Nelson is chiming in to yell as well when he just should just shut his ass up, to be honest. And it just shows how much of a bonehead he is. Amber knows that other people are talking about this, and Devin yells at Michelle for apologizing for lying, and I can't believe they decided to date after this. Hopefully they don't communicate like this in real life. Jay blames Amber for all of this, and Tori is fine with distancing from Michelle and Jay now. Veronica and Michelle talk to Amber about all of this, and Veronica mentions that everyone sees what Devin is doing. We get to the elimination, and Nelson and Reese nominate Amber and Chauncey, partially because they are the weakest team, and Jay mentioned similar sentiments, but I still think it's dumb to target someone on your team, and I think this will kind of carry over to next season. Bananas and Nanny save Anissa and Jordan, and so Veronica and Dora are playing in the elimination. The elimination is deep web where they have to go through the nets in the tower to get pieces, climb back up to solve a puzzle. It takes both pairs hours to solve the puzzle, but Amber and Chauncey do end up beating Dora and Veronica, with people talking about how Nelson and Nerys essentially made the wrong choice. I honestly don't think Dora and Veronica fit on the flagship show anymore, though it doesn't help that they arrived 3 episodes late and don't regularly play with these people. There really wasn't room for either of them to do anything, though it was nice to see an OG pair together. Both of them should just stick with All Stars, where they have more success anyways. Amber and Chauncey are obviously happy with their elimination win, despite her booting Kermit to Darrell. But Amber celebrates with Michelle, where Michelle now sees Amber and Chauncey as her number one, which falls apart next season, but we'll get there. Nerys and Nelson have to practice how to swim, and he is flirting with Olivia. I forgot about their showmance, to be honest, which is a good thing. Anissa speaks to Devin about her relationship with Jordan over the last decade, though they've never shown it outside of their argument on Dirty 30. And Jay knows that as soon as Jordan and Anissa get a daily win, he is going in the sand directly. Hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. They are celebrating Bananas' 40th birthday, and Fessa is speaking to Nelson about people going after them as rookies. I don't remember Fessa really being targeted as a rookie. He went in once mid-season, and it was a skull season, and no one else went after him. Nelson, definitely, I do remember him getting that rookie treatment. But they feel safe with one another. Nelson mentions that Fessel should feel safe with him since he never did anything to Fessel, and Fessel mentions that he's made it up to him the last 2 seasons. The two of them realize that they are better together than apart, and Nelson knows that the fans think that he is dumb for being friends with Fessel again. The daily is Double Trouble, where they have to jump from a trunk to a line of running cars to get a key and run back to their starting positions. I feel like we've seen many variations of this daily since Battle of the Exes 2, and I don't care for the version displayed on this season. Jordan and Anissa win the daily over Jay and Michelle and Bananas and Annie, and Jay and Michelle know that they are screwed. Jay and Michelle, Luis and Nelson, and Olivia and Horacio are going in, but Chauncey and Amber are non-threatening, and they made a deal the last episode, and Fessel and Mariah don't talk game to them. How in the hell does Fessel do 4 seasons with Anissa, especially, and is aligned to her, but doesn't talk to them about the game, especially her. I don't get why he has this mentality. The three of them, and Fessa and Mariah, are nominated, and Michelle kinda snaps at Amber for trying to hug her, as it isn't a shock, which becomes a thing later on. Maybe Michelle kinda felt the energy of Amber kinda shit-talking her in her confessionals, I don't know. But this will become a huge thing. Jordan and Anissa are being very petty about this, which they are acknowledging, and wants to put them in against their friends, where it seems like Anissa and Jordan want Nelson and Nerys to save Fessel and Mariah. Nelson and Nerys do not want to pick the safe digger since they have so many friends, as Mariah and Olivia are Nerys' closest friends, and Fessel was expecting for Anissa to save him, since he didn't nominate her and Jordan due to it, despite him not talking game to her all season. Like, what the fuck? Fessel complains and rants to Nelson about it, since he isn't going to look out for Anissa after this, especially with Amber and Chauncey being safe. And his gameplay is a result of this, so he has no one to blame but himself. And Amber complains to her boyfriend about Michelle. Jordan and Nerys are getting close with one another, and I don't buy this for a fucking second. Of course, Amber and Michelle make up, and Anissa knows that Fessel is annoyed with her. Anissa and Jordan nominate Jay and Michelle, and Nelson and Nerys pick the safe dagger to save Fessel and Mariah, causing him to send his own showmans, Olivia and Horacio, into elimination, which people clown Nelson for. Not only due to him sacrificing his showmans, but to protect Fessel, who sneaked them so hard 2 years ago. They play in spun outs where one of them are strapped on the outside of the circle while the other is inside it, running across the line where they have to grab a puzzle piece and place it into the right spot where there's like 3 sticks. I actually do like the elimination and the mechanics of it, but I couldn't enjoy it due to the obnoxious audience interference, where they're yelling Horacio and Olivia the answers. Just shut the fuck up and let the people compete with their weak, pathetic, remedial vacation asses. Of course, Horacio and Olivia beat Jay and Michelle, and they do not react well to this, though you will see Jay and Michelle do the same thing next season, so it kind of just shows how hypocritical they and other challengers are. Jay found himself in the same pickle as he always does politically, where he doesn't make the best choices and he's just a very volatile personality. But I did add some interest in the season, though. You will see next season how he kind of took the traits that the people who put them in this bad underdog position in next season, where he became the top dog. Michelle made it a bit further this season, and it was nice seeing the bond between the two of them, but she does get frazzled a bit in politics and having to deal with tense situations. But a part of her need to please everyone is just a bit annoying. But this won't be the last of them and the control on a season. Olivia is fine with Nelson, despite him sending her to elimination, since he has closer ties and he struggled with the choice, and Fessel is relieved that Nelson saved him, though he is tired of always losing, which he's crying to Mariah over it, and it's clear that he's very insecure, despite his not appearance, but despite his image that he portrays himself on the show and on social media. And he feels like he's just as good as Bananas and Jordan skill-wise, and Mariah really cheers him up. Bananas and Nanny feel good about the position, and he wants to give her a win, essentially, which is his main motivation this season. Horacio and Olivia feel good, though he talks about how he isn't the best loser and is too hard on himself, which we will see in future seasons. And the Clark siblings feel great, though Casey forgets that her brother is in the house sometimes, which just says so much. Jordan and Tori are wrestling with one another, and despite cuddling with her, there's no getting back together in a relationship. Tori is talking about all of this to Nanny and Anissa, and Nerys talks about how Jordan is not her type at all, which is very obvious, since she doesn't date white men just from looking at her history. But they are getting a bit closer to one another, where Olivia tells Nerys that she doesn't owe Tori anything, which I agree with. But we move on to seeing Nerys and Jordan making out on a bed. Amber likes how sensitive her boyfriend is, and they know that they're kind of on an island when it comes to the relationships in the house, at least strategically. The daily is Hall or Nothing, where they have to run on a 6 mile course with several checkpoints that I don't care to go over, carrying a large plank the entire time, and it is a mini final. They have to walk over barrels with their plank, then they have to carry bags across the barrel. They then had to put a sandbag on their opponent's bags, and then they have to stack boxes and tires. Fessel and Mariah win the daily, and Horacio storms off. which Olivia complains about to Anissa and Amber. TJ announces that the pairs are over and the winners of the daily will have to choose their teams, where their ride or dies are on separate teams. Of course, they did this solely because they had to fill their 19 episode quota that MTV greenlit, and this was the best way to do it. Mariah is really grateful for Fessel, and he is fine playing the game on his own, where he's going to outsmart her with all the team picks. Horacio apologizes to Olivia, and Tori is getting annoyed with Jordan kissing Norris in front of her, and Jordan really doesn't care. Bananas tells Mariah that Fessel is gonna bully her to get to the team he wants. Fessel and Mariah go back and forth about Jordan and Johnny, where he doesn't think that she should have both, and she notices that he's like this team with the strongest people. And he mentions that he brought her into the game, and she doesn't think she can trust him because he's very selfish, and he takes offense to that. Allegedly, there was a chance that Fessel wasn't going to be on this season, and they were thinking about making him alternate or something like that, but he needed a partner, and Mariah agreed to it. So he should be grateful that she agreed to be on, because he might not have been on the season otherwise. Jordan and Tori speak, and she tells him about how people are telling her about him and Nerys, and she moved the situation from her, or she removed herself from the situation. He mentions that he was in the situation with watching her on Double Agents, and she's arguing about how they were sleeping in the bed naked together. And this reminds Jordan of the last few months of their relationship, where he's tired of it being the Tory show and everything being his fault. Fessel chooses Casey, Anissa, Bananas, Chauncey, Nelson, Olivia, and Tori, as Mariah chooses Kenny, Jordan, Nani, Amber, Nerys, Horacio, and Devon for her team. Everyone is looking forward to their teams, and Fessel's team looks a lot stronger on paper than Mariah's. And Fessel knows that Nodal's, Jordan, and Devon want to be the alphas on their team, i.e., Mariah's, and they will cancel one another out. People are worried about Devon and Jordan's conflict, especially now with how Jordan and Maurice's relationship can affect things, and Devon and Tori are partners. The daily is Last Life, where they are above the water in a beam, where one person per team has to fight their opponent and to knock them off. I do think it was a pretty good and simple daily, and Nanny is checked out by the ambulance and she gets cold in the water and lands poorly in it. The pink team, which is Fessel's team, wins the daily, and they have to nominate a guy, and one will be sent directly to elimination. We learn a bit more about Casey and Kenny's relationship, and we know that he is in danger due to them getting so much screen time here. Tori thinks that Jordan would gun for her if his team won on a girls' day, and he thinks that it is offensive that she's even asking him this. Tori knows that taking out Jordan and missing would be an issue, so she speaks to Fessel, who realizes that Tori is blatantly protecting Jordan and Devon as she wants Horacio out, and Nelson realizes that something is off with his team claiming to not know who to nominate or state who's going in. And I think this is the whole issue with the Tori and Jordan thing. Despite all the talk and the full kiss, they were never going to target one another, so there were never really any stakes in it, as nothing was really going to change. Jordan knows that when he or Horacio are going sent into elimination outright, to weaken his team, and the pink team does send in Horacio, which pisses off Nelson, since they came up with this plan behind him, Chauncey, and Olivia's backs, and they all voted separately here. Devin chooses the safe knife and saves Jordan to send Kenny in. The two rookies play in Breaking Barriers, where they have to unlock several doors with the roles presented to them, and this was a pretty decent elimination. I feel like we've seen a few variations of this in Final Reckoning, if I'm remembering it correctly. And of course, Horacio beat Kenny. But the ride or die twist still matters a lot, since you are only out if both you and your ride or die are eliminated. Tracy is very emotional over her little brother going home, and Nanny consoles her. Nelson and Louise are talking about how he did not know about the vote and thinks that Tori and Anissa are the biggest snakes on his team. And Norris knows that being a rookie within a triangle is an issue that's not going to end well for her. Bananas knows that Fessa and Mariah are not close, and she realizes that Fessa essentially used her. Amber is talking to Mariah about how she is on her own and Mariah wants to work with her, despite Amber and Fessel not liking one another. Clearly, this is a setup for what's going to happen later on in the episode. Spin Class is the daily where everyone is on a wheel, and it's essentially a trivia challenge where whomever is under the arrow will answer the question. I really do not like this daily, and it's mainly due to how boring it is. Fessel's team wins it yet again, so Nani, Amber, Mariah, and Nerys are in danger. Nelson rants to Devin about how much he hates his team, and he's still not over being left in the dark about the last vote, and Amber is hoping that she and Mariah can help save one another, where Mariah is selling out Amber to her showmans. Tori doesn't want it to look like she's targeting Nerys due to personal reasons, but she knows that it is somewhat of a reason, but not the entire reason. Of course, Nani, Anissa, Casey, and Tori want to run a final together, and they're coming up with a plan to send the two Wookiee women in, and Jordan is giving Nerys advice in the deliberation. Nelson throws a tantrum in the deliberation with his team, and people like Bananas and Tori keep on mentioning Norris's puzzle skills. Nani and Amber are talking about them saving one another if they're in the draw, and Mariah does not want to have to be the one to choose the draw, as she made deals with Nani as well. So Mariah is double dipping, but Nani is definitely playing Mariah here. Tori has a conversation with Nerys about her showmance with Jordan and thinks that it wasn't a girl's girl thing, and Nerys mentions that it is not her intention to cause any sort of drama, but Tori just doesn't want it in her face. Nerys is voted into elimination as the main vote, and Mariah pulls a dagger that's safety, or that gives safety, and she chooses to save Nani, causing Amber to go into elimination. Pato Brawl is the Argentinian pole wrestler. I actually do like the elimination, where Amber does beat Denise. And apparently the vets were telling Amber what to do in the elimination, which was annoying. Jordan is hoping that he and Reese can continue their relationship outside of the show, but she went right back to Johnny. We will hear more about this in the reunion. Mariah's team's just getting weaker and weaker, and Nelson has said that Norris is gone now. Amber and Chauncey are talking about starting a family, having kids, and buying a house after the season, and he knows that he is in danger during this male round. Bananas and Nanny are talking about the team's twist being weird since he wants to help her win, and he wants to do a lot more for her. Nelson calls Corey on the phone and he talks about how he is working with Vessel in the season and they're friends now, which Corey lectures him about. Corey is a hypocrite since he worked with Vessel right after Nelson was eliminated on Double Agent and worked with him after Ride or Die as well. Corey reminds Nelson about his mother and to focus on the win. Jordan calls his friend and he talks about working for Ukraine for humanitarian support and shipping a bunch of supplies. This was nice, but I do think that they showed it on the edited episode so they could redeem Jordan's image. Mariah and Fessel are talking where he wants her to help him win on the guy's day, though she calls him out for not helping her win on a girl's day, where he mentions that she didn't ask him to do that. She doesn't trust him anymore, and Fessel sees her as his number one woman. The daily is Chopper Drop, where they have to drop in a target zone as they hold onto the rope on a helicopter, and the smaller the target spot, the more points that they will get. It's a fine enough daily where I do find it interesting to see how they organize the team to drop in certain targets and how to swim, or how they swim. Mariah's team does win the daily by under 2 seconds, and I don't know if this is true or not, so I'm kind of suspicious about it. Nelson is talking to Fessel about doing 9 seasons and not being a captain or a winner, and Nelson and Fessel realize that they're at the bottom of the vets of the vets essentially, and they don't want to go against one another in the elimination. Bananas, Casey, and Chauncey talk about making a big shot, and Bananas is thinking about saving Chauncey since Fessel and Nelson are obviously going to save one another. Devin created an Operation Save Chauncey plan where he can build/exploit trust with Amber, and because he knows Chauncey is the weakest man on the team. Jordan and Devin talk about breaking up Nelson and Fessel, and Jordan wants Fessel in since he hasn't done anything that isn't a hot brawl or something physical in an elimination, and he has not been into enough eliminations overall, though Mariah doesn't want this at all. Fessel makes a deal with Jordan since he wants to go to the end with him, where Tori also holds her friendship with Jordan over his head so he can save Fessel. And this is the right thing to do, and I definitely see why Jordan is annoyed with her bringing personal elements into the game. While sending in Fessel, he calls out Tori for threatening him, and he doesn't negotiate with terrorists, so he's going back on his word. Tori calls her out for blaming Kim's decision on her, and she's yelling at him for making her look shady, where she vouched for people to mention that he would not do this. He is salty that Mariah didn't create a tie and created a burn vote, and Chauncey pulls a safe draw, saving Bananas, and sending Nelson into elimination against his friend. Their worst fears come true and they compete in Spearheaded, where they have to rip out 9 spears that are tangled through the walls and chains and to put them in the appropriate place. If I'm remembering this correctly, this was similar to a redemption challenge on Final Reckoning. I do like this elimination, but the audience assistance is a bit more balanced this time, where people are helping out both and it's definitely more equal. History does repeat itself here, with Fessel beating Nelson, which Fessel isn't happy about, and because both Nelson and Nerys were eliminated individually, both of them are out of the game for good. I do feel like Nelson felt very comfortable on the show and game, as he played a lot safer and felt like he was playing for more episodes instead of really playing to win, but it did seem like he was less contrived this season compared to last season. Unfortunately for him, he would be the first boot on his last season after this in World Championship, and his car crash caused his foot to be amputated, which would end his time on the show, and this is his final flagship season. Maurice was a lot more calm this season than she was on her Are You the One or even X on the Beach season before this, though her stuff with Raven was apparently edited out. She was a lot smarter than I realized, and I'm glad they finally gave her a chance, though she should have been on the show years ago. But it's a flaw with Are You the One casting on the show, but it seems like the show realized their mistake, as she will be back. Olivia is sad that Nerys and Nelson are gone, and Banana speaks to Fessel about Mariah sending him in, essentially, which causes for the two Reddit guys to kind of argue about it, and Mariah was not going to tie it up, and then have someone from her team go in due to the stalemate. But he will remember this for next time, so he can burn a vote on her. Fessel calls Jordan out for his lack of loyalty, though Fessel has done this several times in the past, so he's being hypocritical here. Jordan admits that he was being petty and does not want to hash it out with Tori, and they mention the same stuff that they did in the elimination, or at the elimination. Tori mentions that she handled the new stuff the best way she could, and then Jordan does this again, where she's tired of everything being about him in the season. Amber and Chansey speak to her mother, sister, and niece, and Casey and Annie talk about introducing Casey to her mother, and she didn't know how her mother would react, and it is Nanny's mother's birthday. Blind Faith is the daily where there are 4 events, where certain people from each team have to do certain events, and they all have to compete in each. Or one of them has to compete in each. One involves slingshotting, which Jordan and Fessel plays in, and then they have to drink if they miss the shot. A puzzle, which Anissa and Olivia and Devin and Annie partake in, and a memory/endurance race to look at the puzzle piece, which Tori and Bananas and Horacio and Amber competed. And the last event is the bungee endurance to run/hold on to a bar, which Jordan and Mariah and Casey and Chansey play in. I honestly found all this to be very boring to watch, especially with it taking place all day. Fessel's team wins the daily, and only Amber, Mariah, and Nanny are eligible to be sent into elimination. Chauncey obviously feels bad, and Amber tells him to not feel bad, as he should prioritize himself, as she does throw Mara under the bus at the deliberation, since Mara is a rookie who has never went into elimination, and she sees Nanny as her other ride or die that isn't Chauncey, which I found to be interesting. Fessel is kind of greenlighting his team to send Mariah in, and Nanny gives Casey a pep talk, just in case she doesn't come back. Mariah is sent into elimination, and Amber pulls a safe draw, causing Nanny to play I Can See with Mariah, where they are tied below. I do think it's an interesting way to combine physical endurance and puzzle skills, but Nanny, or spelling skills, I should say, but Nanny barely beats Mariah. Everyone is speculating about the next twist, and Nani feels like herself again after this elimination win. It is Olivia's birthday, and Horacio gives her flowers, where Anissa tells Tori that she wouldn't be sent in by Jordan, where Anissa's playing the middle woman between the exes. Takes two to tango is the daily, or nighty, as they're on top of the building in the middle of the night, and they have to walk with a pair across the beam, where if they do not do it quick enough, they'll be dropped to or in the air. Chauncey refuses to do the challenge, and in general, I'm not much of a fan of this one. Fessel and Tori wins it for his team, and one of Jordan, Horacio, and Devin is going home. The interrogation takes place, and it's clear that Fessel's team wants to get rid of either Horacio or Jordan, as they want to leave Devin off as the main direct vote, and essentially they think Devin is the weakest one. Tori lashes out at Jordan for calling her a terrorist, and he stands firm in his choice of words, and Anissa is more than over the Tori and Jordan saga, and I'm right there with her. Horacio and Jordan have some camaraderie amongst one another where they built some sort of friendship, and then we move on to the elimination, where Horacio is voted into elimination and Devin picks the safe draw, so Jordan has to go in. Horacio and Jordan play in Balls In, where Horacio actually pulls out the win over Jordan, who ties Sarah and Wes and Casey from winning 5 eliminations in a single season. He feels like he has his closure with Tori, I'm referring to Jordan at this point, and is looking for him to go home, where he wasn't happy where he was told that he has the chance to come back. It is the next day, and the cast are shocked with TJ entering the house, where he tells them about your fate is still being tied to your ride or die, whether you're in or out. So everyone remaining cast are eliminated. Partners return to the game, where Anissa and Jordan, Fessa and Mariah, and Casey and Kenny have to compete for their spots back in the game or to go home. The first competition is Don't Let Me Down, where they have to all go on their designated ramps and push a cylinder at the top of the ramp, and they have to stand above the line and hold it for a minute, where the winning team earns their spot in the game. Other two pairs have to compete in the second challenge, where elimination technically, where the other pair goes home for good. Not so fast as the elimination, where they have to tie around their box and then untangle their opponent's box, and it's a classic, which has Anissa and Jordan pulling it out over Casey and Kenny. It is clear that Kenny solely did this show for his sister Casey, and while the both of them really bored me, they are the biggest examples of a ride or die, since you will always be siblings with your sibling, no matter what the dynamic of your relationship is. You can't change that. Casey being there to support Nanny was nice, and her not making it to the final for the first time in her career is nice to see. I really don't have anything else to say. So it is back to the ride or die pairs now with the format, and Chauncey and Amber know that they're at the bottom of the list since she's a prior winner and he is a rookie. And in general, they just don't have many ties to people at this point. Fessa and Mariah hash it out since the both of them feel betrayed over the other, where he left her hanging when they went to the heat, and he split it about her burning the votes that caused him to go in. But they decide to put it behind them now. Bananas is consoling Nanny since Casey was the only consistent presence since her mother passed away, and Bananas is being really supportive. Runaway Ride is the daily where they will be in the bus with a bunch of balls, and they have to read the codes outside of it to get the designated balls to put into their tubes. I think on paper it is a decent daily, but seeing a bunch of people throw up on a challenge that isn't an eating daily is just really gross. Bananas and Nanny do win the daily, and they have to save one pair, where one pair will be saved and the other four will automatically be nominated. And sorry, the other three, yeah, the other three will be in the draw. My bad. Sorry. Okay. One pair out of the remaining five that's not safe will be safe, and the other four will automatically be nominated. Within that four, one will be automatically sent into elimination via the vote, and the other three will be in the draw. My bad. Amber and Chauncey know that they're going into the elimination and they want to control their fate, so they essentially volunteer to go in. Fessa and Mariah are protected because Bananas is romancing her and they are a strong team that they could have in their corner. People kind of see through Amber and Chauncey where they claim that the couple wants to seem virtuous, where if they come back they can mention that they nominated themselves for everyone. Horacio and Olivia pull the safe dagger and save Tori and Devon, causing Anissa and Jordan to go into the elimination. Jordan is shocked based on his relationship with Horacio, but Horacio is holding on to Anissa voting him in a few times, which I guess. They compete in Rumble Tumble, or Rubble Tumble, I don't know how you say it, where the opponents are tied to one another and they have to fight to knock over all the figures in a circle. Anissa, of course, washes Amber in this elimination. There's a clear weight discrepancy there. And Jordan wins over Chauncey by using strategy and letting Chauncey get a few so Jordan can have an easier time getting his knocked over. And he tricks him despite Chauncey being larger than him. Chauncey and Amber are ride or dice as they are girlfriend and boyfriend. I don't think either of them were really entertaining throughout the season, but they did have a nice relationship, and at least Amber had an easy season where she made it deep into the season without much drama. Chauncey was definitely a disappointing competitor, despite all of his muscles and knowing that he's a gym head. but I don't know if he has it in him to thrive on a show from a competitive, strategic, or personality point of view. They did perform weak in the dailies, which was pretty shocking, but it might have been one of the reasons why they lasted so long on the season. Bananas is talking about playing low profile this season intentionally, and they all know one more person will be booted before the finale, with Jordan and Anissa celebrating their win. She feels like it's a redemption season for her, since she's not the youngest person now, and she's been doing this for 20 years, and Jordan wants to prove that he can still be a champion. Fessel and Jordan are talking about how Bananas has not been in an elimination all season and is skating by, where even Jordan is fine with the plan. Tori organizes a spa day for herself and Devin, and if they talk about winning the daily to target Nanny and Bananas or Fessel and Mariah, mainly they're focusing on whether they should target Nanny and Bananas. We have Fessel and Mariah realizing that if they don't win the daily, they'll probably go into elimination, where Tori sees them as the biggest threat. The daily is frozen senseless, where they have to go to their sides to remember whatever is on the side, and both of them jumping into the ice bath water to relay information to one another. It's not the best or the worst daily, but it's just meh overall, with Tori and Devin winning, and they get to choose one pair to send right into the lair. Bananas calls West, and I don't give a single fuck. Horacio and Olivia tell Devin and Tori that they will save Jordan and Tori and Devin are going back and forth on who to choose, where he wants Bananas and Nanny targeted and she wants Fessel and Mariah targeted. Olivia and Anissa are talking about saving one another. Tori and Devin send in Fessel and Mariah, of course because he's at the bottom of the totem pole, and Fessel feels betrayed, with Horacio and Olivia pulling the dagger and saving Anissa and Jordan, forcing Nanny and Bananas to go into the elimination. They compete in Bridge It, where they have to walk/climb a rope and using the poles to put on a rung to climb the top. Fessa and Mariah really struggle, and he finally loses in elimination, where he does not have a physical headbanger. The final four teams are told that they're all in the final. I found myself pretty bored with Fessa this season, and I don't know if it's because his flirting romances were pretty tiring at the time and kind of went nowhere, and then him and Mariah drifting apart without anything really happening, but I'm fine with him not being on every season after this. But I do appreciate him embracing his ethnic name, which is something a lot of people lose. Mariah is a really nice girl, but she doesn't have much presence on the show, and she isn't a very standout person. I am glad that her showmance with Bananas didn't get much focus, though it's crazy how quickly that fell apart. Everyone is happy that they made it to the final, and TJ arrives the morning after to get them for the final, where it is a 180-hour, essentially a 3-day final, and this is just unnecessary. The finals are not that interesting in general, and they clearly use this as an excuse for 3 episodes. They start the final driving somewhere, then they're carrying a box. It is night time, and then they are riding a bicycle for a certain amount of time. They move on to the next morning where they have to go on a race where you have to complete each station that don't give a shit enough to really recap like that. Jordan runs off course, and Anissa ends up injuring herself, which is nothing new as she injures her ankle this time, and she yells at him for staying off course. Olivia Slutch injures her finger while sewing one of the circular strings on the rope, and she needs stitches. After rearranging the eliminated people's tires in order, they make it to the slingshotting portion where Olivia ends up accidentally injuring herself as the ball left its slingshot and hit her right in between her nose where it's broken and she is bleeding. Apparently, she was a few inches from passing away if the ball hit her in a certain place, which is just so sad. It shows how negligent they are when it comes to the safety on this show. Of course, she and Horacio are DQ'd, and his reaction to her being hurt and wanting to continue on this one is just really, really heartbreaking. We see them reunite to do confessionals a few months afterwards, and she reveals her face post surgery, and she'll never look the same again. Obviously, Olivia and Horacio are the rookies of the year, with them winning many eliminations and constantly being on the bottom. Olivia didn't annoy me here nearly as much as she did on her Love Island season, but I found her to be relatively likable enough, though I didn't care for her showmance with Nelson at all, and I didn't love her like the edit wanted me to. Horacio is definitely impressive as a physical challenger, and he won 2 individual eliminations as well. I didn't mind him much here, though he was definitely a muted personality overall. I also hate that they continue to show and replay Olivia injuring her nose in future seasons and future advertisements. Though we've learned apparently that they weren't as close as the show tried to make it seem, where they had the same agent, which is why they did the show, and there's kind of convoluting stuff about how they met and how long they've known each other. They now have to swim in greenish water to grab pieces and come back to look at the answer code on the puzzle, which is very far off. There's another puzzle where Nani's knee is pretty fucked up now. It's clear that Tori and Devon are in the lead over the others, where the other two pairs are helping one another out. Anissa has her ankle wrapped by the medic, and he rants about how he sees why she hasn't been to a final in 13 years, where Anissa and Jordan are arguing in front of everyone because she kind of blames him for going off path, which caused her to get her, and he doesn't like that she's blaming him, essentially. Tori cheers up her friend, and we move on to the next morning where there's some running to push a car. It moves on to the evening, and they have to eat a bunch of normal food, which is spaghetti and ice cream, but they have to eat all of it, so we have a lot of throwing up. Bananas and Nani are now in the lead with Tori and Devin in second, and Anissa and Jordan at third. They are roughly on day three of the final, if I'm remembering it correctly, where one pair will go to the helicopter to throw certain targets, where Tori and Devin regain their lead. They end up walking through some paths in the nighttime, and CJ announces that there's going to be an elimination. And because Devin and Tori arrived to him first, they are safe. Nani's knee injury is reactivated, and Anissa's ankle injury is still very prominent, where they have to play balls in. Nani ends up using Anissa's injury against her, and it sucks watching Anissa bawl crying in pain, not being able to do anything, and Bananas does beat Jordan. Obviously, Anissa initially arrived onto the season with her real life best friend, and I believe his name is James, but he was taken out, and Jordan was supposed to do it with Naya, but she was dealing with a vaping issue. Jordan and Anissa was a random ass pair, but we did see them work together pretty well for a lot of the season, only for that to kind of fall apart in the final with the ankle injury and all. It is still one of Jordan's more copacetic and agreeable coming pairings, and while this is one of Anissa's strongest seasons with the performances, the final performances just isn't there, which we also saw on All Stars 1, but at least she got her chance after whining about it for 13 years. The final two go to sleep, and they wake up in their final morning to do the final face-off. So they rest all day, essentially, after that. The other eliminated finalists show up, and Olivia shows up with her injured face. Post No, I don't think they did some surgery on it, but yeah, it's still very puffy and there's a lot of marks on it. Level Up is the final challenge slash elimination where they have to barge into four different rooms in a path, and once they get through that level, they will win the season. They also have to pull poles out of the walls and move the center blocks and create the puzzle with it, where Nanny and Bananas ends up losing the game due to this portion. They are arguing like hell, causing Tori and Devin to win. Bananas tears up a few times about them losing and feeling responsible for Nanny losing, and it's weird to get genuine emotions like this from him. Nanny had arguably her most emotional season here, with her losing her mother before filming the season, and then dealing with Casey getting eliminated over her. This was a season where I was rooting for her to get a win, and she did perform well, but maybe she was not in the right headspace for being there. I see why she took a break for a few years after this, as she did 6 seasons in a row, just like she did during her first one. Bananas came back after being off for a few seasons, and he was very under the radar, which he definitely complained about during the season. I do believe him in the fact that he wanted to focus on getting Nanny her first win, but I also find it ironic that he talked so much crap about the other vets and the vacation airlines while he was gone, but to essentially play the same way they did and to kind of work with them and join them. Since he came back from his hiatus on Double Agents, Devon heavily emphasized getting new winners and wanting new winners, especially the male winners, and it was pulled off here, with him getting the win. Devon did get very mad and emotional whenever things didn't go his way, which kind of continued from last season, but he did play pretty well this season, and his camaraderie with Tori worked out really well. Clearly, Tori's journey this season was mainly focused on her up and down relationship with Jordan, since this was the first time they saw one another in a year and a half. And while it was interesting at first, it got really, really old, especially since you knew nothing would really come from it. But I am glad that she was willing to be so open to talk about her mental health issues and journey. Now we are at the reunion where Amber announces that she is pregnant with Chansey's kid, obviously, and we all know that she really found out while filming World Championships a few months prior to the reunion, but a few months after Ride or Die is filmed. Johnny and Raven were watching the challenge together before joining the season, but he didn't see anything happening between them, and Raven is mad that that he is trying to make her look crazy, where he saw her titties, and he was essentially leading her on. Johnny claims that this was a year and a half ago, and Raven is pissed off that he wasn't supportive as a partner. Nerys then gets involved and picks a fight with Raven, and she tells her to make new friends. Raven felt alone and she's getting emotional, where she does not see Johnny as a friend currently, and Nerys told Johnny about Jordan right after she was eliminated, and she and Johnny fucked, essentially. Raven slut shames Nerys, Nerys' vagina drips gold, and Raven's drips bronze. And remember this accusations of this fight being fake, but Raven just had that really poor comeback. Veronica calls out Bananas for using her. Um, by her, I'm referring to Mariah, and she based her comment on his history on his girlfriend in the past. Bananas claims that she knows nothing about his girlfriend, and Veronica mentions that she was around when he cheated on his girlfriend post 3030, which is very interesting. And Mariah and Bananas are together now, so we all know this will fall apart a few months from now. Laura and Michelle are arguing where Laura went to get earplugs, where she asked everyone in the house and the producers. Then she kind of starts rambling, and then she got injured over toilet water somehow, and then Michelle made it about her. So that's seemingly the start of their little feud. Michelle thinks that Laurel did not warm up to her, and Laurel mentions that Michelle made shit up in her head, and she is scared of her. Michelle's scared of Laurel. So Michelle claims that she isn't scared now, and she did admit that her energy changed towards Michelle. Apparently, Veronica gave Michelle a warning, though she doesn't remember that, or she just kind of backtracking, I don't know. Jack calls out Jay for wanting to hang out, but wanted to film it for content, and Jay thinks that he is nuts since he's a photographer, and Jack thinks that Jay creates a fake persona. Jordan does it like the move he did with the Fessel elimination, or sending Fessel into elimination, though he does justify it, but regrets how Tori felt about it, so it's kind of not really an apology. And Tori calls him out about not holding onto his word, and the two of them start to somewhat argue, where he doesn't appreciate her threatening their friendship about it. We learn how Mariah and Fessa became ride or dies as he slid into her DMs, but she was in a relationship with someone, so they didn't speak for a while, and she called him out for being her friend in real life, but when convenient, and they did hang out as friends for a while. Olivia and Horacio's DQ is discussed, and her injury is delved into and what she had to do. And then he talks about how her mother raised herself in the Dominican Republic and came to the USA with nothing. So it explains Nanny's mentality, and she felt guilty for Casey not doing as well, since Casey didn't focus on socializing or the politics this season and just focus on her. You can really see the love they have for one another here. The cast is called out for audience interference and eliminations, where the cast claims that the fans were just mad because it was Jay and Michelle, as they didn't care when it happened to Turbo. Turbo sent a video since he backed out of filming last minute because he had some other obligation, and there's a bunch of pussy chicken terms and commentary coming from him. Mariah is annoyed that Fessel pinned a comment about her using him, essentially, and Mariah is tired of Fessel talking behind her back, but not saying it to her face, and mentioned that Anissa only said stuff about her sleeping with people to get safety. Anissa tells Mariah not to buck up now, as she didn't say shit on the show, and Mariah is mad that Anissa shaded her on her podcast with Tori, and it was all just very random as hell. Faisal felt a way about Mariah, claiming that he said, "Not my partner, not my problem," and Nerys said that Faisal did tell her that, and he said it verbatim, and Faisal pretty much shuts it down here, so in my opinion, that's kind of confirmation that he did say it. Nanny talks about them dealing with grief together, but she was numb to anyone's emotions, and by they, I'm referring to Nanny and Michelle. And yeah, she was numb to anyone's emotions in the season, so she and Michelle were friends before this. Nanny's lip fillers are really distracting at this reunion. Jordan and Tori's relationship is discussed, where it was the toughest thing they had to deal with in their careers doing the season together, and Anissa mentions that it was hard to deal with the both of them, since they were tied together. Tori ends up crying in happiness for healing from the traumas of their relationship ending, and is glad that they are friends now. Jordan mentions that he laid in bed with Tori because it was safe. Nerys regrets getting involved with Jordan, and nothing happened after the show, which, duh, there's like no chemistry there. The showmances are discussed, and supposedly Laura and Horacio were dating other people, but she didn't know that he wanted to make that girl his boyfriend. So it went nowhere, and I still do believe he kind of lied to not be with Laurel. And Johnny and Nerys fucked last night, according to them, where Olivia and Nelson went nowhere. It had been 3 weeks after filming, so she focused on herself, and she just got a life-altering injury, so I don't blame her. Where he felt like she forgot about him, where her friends told her to forget about him based off his past material. Well, he and Angela did go on the Dr. Phil show, and she outed his horrid antics, so I don't really blame her friends for this one. And she wanted to be alone for a while. Nelson and Olivia continue arguing backstage, with Anissa telling the cameraman to record them. They talk about Nelson and Fessel's friendship, with Nelson being one of the few people Fessel actually talks to from the show in his real life, and they're all fine now. Nelson mentions that he did the same thing Fessel did in the past as well, and I talked about this with him and Corey on Invasion on the Champions. Jordan and Laurel hooked up over a year ago, and Tori was petty for bringing that up on her podcast. And Chelsea called out a lot of the women for being fake to Amber, where he told Anissa on the podcast and about since he was referring to her and Nerys. Nerys denies having a group chat shitting on Amber, and Amber wants to protect the woman who told her. It was most likely Michelle, in my opinion. Tori talks about her mental health, and Amber announces that she was recently diagnosed with autism, which is why she struggles in social settings, where she wants to go to the doctor after filming the season, where she mirrors a lot of people's behavior to fit in, and the cast do support her. That's really all I have to say about Ride or Dies. The main format of the season is a lot better than the last several, with the interpersonal relationships that the Ride or Dies should have been focused on, but obviously, a lot of the pairings were not real Ride or Dies, and the fact that they split them up into teams midway through the season just so they can get their 19 episode counts really killed all momentum for the season. And while there was some drama in the first 8 or so episodes, it really wasn't the highs that the show is used to. And there's really nothing going on in the second half. The Jordan and Tori stuff got old very, very quickly, and then the season kind of just fell off. In general, there's kind of just this milk toast vibe to the season that a lot of the era for seasons has, and it's very unfortunate. Definitely better than Spies, Lies, and Allies. I don't know if it's better than Double Agents, but it's definitely probably in the lower quarter of my season rankings. If it does make it to the third quarter, it's at the very bottom of it. That's all I have to say, and yeah.